The heavy treads of the Oakley hegemony's assault vehicles ground the soil into fine dust, a stark contrast to the vibrant green that had covered this world just cycles ago. Commander Vorag surveyed the scene with satisfaction. His forces had secured the primary settlement with minimal casualties. The indigenous population, these humans, were proving to be exactly as the long-range scans had indicated: primitive, disorganized, and utterly outmatched. His troops moving, effortless corralling the bipedal natives into temporary holding pens. They were fragile creatures, easily overwhelmed. The conquest of this Type M world was proceeding ahead of schedule. A minor victory, perhaps, but a necessary expansion for the hegemony. A report crackled over his comms.
Commander, we have a priority detainee, male specimen, exhibiting unusual behavior, appears amused by the situation, requesting immediate interrogation.
Intrigued, Vorag made his way to the field interrogation tent. Inside, Probe Specialist Unit 88, its optical senses focused intently, was attempting to extract information from the captive. The human, a male in simple, torn clothing, was secured in standard restrained chair, and he was indeed laughing, a ragged, breathless sound.
Subject's neutral patterns are anomalous, Commander.
Unit 88 reported, its voice synthesized and flat.
Standard interrogation protocols are ineffective. Laughter appears to be genuine, emotional response, possibly linked to extreme stress or amusement.
Vorag approached the human, his patience wearing thin.
"Cease this noise!"
he commanded in basic translation dialect. The human's laughter subsided into gasping breaths, but his eyes, bright with disturbing mirth, were fixed on Vorag. You really don't get it," the human wheezed, shaking his head slightly. "You have no idea at all what you've just done." Vorag felt a prickle of irritation.
"Enlighten me, native. Have we not demonstrated our superiority? Have we not taken your world? What is there to get?"
The human's grin widened, a genuine, happy, terrifying expression. "Oh, you took it all right," he chuckled, the sound still laced with hysteria. "You came in here, guns blazing, scans running. Tell me, Commander, what did those scans tell you about us?" Vorag narrowed his optical senses.
"They indicated a civilization barely capable of harnessing its planetary energy. No orbital presence, no interstellar capability. Primitive energy signatures, basic material science. A Type 0 civilization, as classified by hegemony standards. A species confined to its cradle world."
The human's grin was now beatific. "And you believed it?" he asked, his voice soft, laced with disbelief. "That's all you saw? Didn't it ever cross your mind that maybe we chose this?" Vorag recoiled slightly.
"Chose? To live in such simplicity? To remain confined and vulnerable? That is illogical."
"Is it?" the human countered, his voice losing the hysteria, becoming calm and unnervingly rational. "What if we preferred a quieter life? What if we found endless expansion and technological complexity tedious? What if this world wasn't our limit but our preference? A place to step away from the noise?"
"Nonsense!"
Vorag scoffed, regaining his composure.
"If you were a part of a more advanced civilization, they would have defended you. Where are they, this hidden power you speak of?"
The human's eyes, still locked on Vorag, seemed to deepen, reflecting an ancient, knowing light. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Talking about this," the human said. The air around the human shimmered violently, not with light, but with a sudden, localized distortion of space itself. There was no sound, no energy pulse, just an instantaneous absence. The human in the chair was gone, the restraints empty. A cacophony of alarms erupted from outside. Vorag rushed out, his hand instinctively going to his sidearm. His troops were pointing upward, their voices filled with disbelief and terror. Above them, the rounded-up human prisoners were vanishing, not fleeing, but simply blinking out of existence from the holding pens, from the transport lines. Silent, impossible disappearances, leaving behind only empty space and stunned Oakleyan's guards. Then the sky changed, not with the fiery descent of drop pods or the familiar bloom of warp points, but with a quiet appearance. A handful of ships, perhaps a dozen, shimmered into being in low orbit. They were small, sleek, and utterly unlike anything that the hegemony has ever seen. They registered no energy, no heat, nothing on passive scans. Panic surged through the hegemony comms.
Unidentified contacts, phasing in, no signatures. They are just appearing.
Before Vorag's fleet could coordinate a response, the human ships acted. From the lead vessel, thin, almost invisible lines of force extended. They didn't fire weapons, they unmade things. A hegemony cruiser directly above began to fragment, its hull plates separating, its weapon turrets detaching, its internal systems winking out. It wasn't an explosion, it was a controlled, surgical deconstruction, reducing the massive vessel to drifting debris in moments. Other ships followed, dissolving with the same terrifying efficiency. Vorag watched in stunned silence as his fleet, the mighty spearhead of the Oakleyan's hegemony, was systematically disassembled. On the ground, his troops' power armor locked up, their energy weapons sputtered out and died. Then, a shimmering appeared directly in front of Vorag, revolving into a holographic projection. It was the human from the interrogation tent. The mirth was gone, replaced by an expression of calm, focused intent. "We are here now." The human's voice echoed, not from the projection, but seemingly from within Vorag's own mind. Around Vorag, the temporary hegemony structures, the command tent, the processing units, the landing pads began to shimmer and fade, like illusions dispelled. They weren't destroyed, they simply ceased to exist in this location. Simultaneously, the ruined human settlement began to rebuild itself. Walls rose from dust, furniture reassembled, and scorched marks on the ground vanishing as if they had never been. The garden was being restored. The last thing Vorag saw before a wave of disorientation claimed him was the human's face in the projection, utterly serene, and the sight of his own base dissolving while the human world became whole again. Consciousness returned slowly, a painful, disoriented process. Vorag's body ached, but he was unrestrained. He lay on something soft, yielding. He opened his optical senses, blinking against a light that felt alien. He was outside. Above him a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, and a moon he didn't recognize. The air was cool, carrying the scent of strange, sweet-smelling vegetation. He pushed himself up, looking around. He was in a clearing, surrounded by tall, slender trees with leaves that glowed faintly. Where was he? This was not a hegemony facility. A figure stepped into the clearing, tall, bipedal, soft-skinned, a human, not in armor, not in any uniform, just a human, wearing simple, dark clothing. The human stopped a few paces away, looking down at Vorag. His expression was neutral, curious, like something examining an interesting specimen. "Greetings," the human said, his voice calm, quiet, but carrying an undeniable weight of authority. "Apologies for the sudden relocation. It was necessary." The human knelt down. His eyes, the same eyes that had held amusement and chilling calm, now held a quiet, intense focus. "We require some information," the human said, his voice low and direct. "Your species designation, the Oakleyan's hegemony. Is that correct?" Vorag, a commander who had led invasions, felt a cold dread seize him. He could only stare up at the human, unable to speak. The human tilted his head slightly, and he continued, his voice dropping just a fraction, becoming colder, harder. "We need the coordinates of your primary systems, your homeworld, all of them." He wasn't asking for surrender, he was asking for directions. The human offered a small, polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We prefer not to be disturbed," he said softly. "And when we are, we find it's more efficient to address the source of the disturbance directly, you know." He smiled, politely, without warmth. Meanwhile, aboard the Hegemony's High Command flagship, orbiting safely in another system, Fleet Commander Kellor received the last transmission from Commander Vorag's expedition. It was 3 seconds of static, then silence. No distress signal, no combat logs, just nothing. Kellor demanded a recon fleet be sent. Within seconds, navigational AIs returned an error. Kellor stared.
"What does that mean?"
A junior analyst, pale, trembling, whispered,
"Sir, it's like the entire star system was erased from the map. We cannot find a route."
Suddenly, one of the central holoscreens flickered to life. A single human face stared out from the static. He smiled and said nothing.